Hi there, everybody. I'm Jennifer Angel, and this is my Mercury Retrograde report. Okay, for August, September 2023. All right, let's get started. I'm going to go into all the transits, the retrograde direct, the stationary direct, stationary retrograde, the shadow, the storm, all the dates, what it all means, and then after that I'm going to go through your sun sign. Okay, what this particular Mercury retrograde in Virgo means for each of your signs. So stick around for that. Also, it's likely to be a very long report, so just check the time code, the timestamp down the bottom, and you can whiz forward to your sign. All right, okay, so I always think of Mercury retrograde, oh, isn't going to be magical, it's going to cause magical mayhem, so let's go through and how best to use the energy to our advantage. So communication planet Mercury, it's known as the thinking planet of intellect, and it can affect the way that you think, communicate, relate. It's also known as a celestial messenger of the gods, and is, as a rule, retrograde 3 times a year for around 3 weeks each time. That's not counting the shadow period. Okay. And it can cause all sorts of magic and mayhem, which means, there's some frustrations, but there's also some great stuff that happens with Mercury retrograde as well, okay? Believe me, taken me a while to come to that conclusion because it has not been one of my most favorite transits. All right, but during the retrograde transit, Mercury it slows down, so it appears to be going backwards through the zodiac, but it's a visual illusion. So as Mercury passes between the earth and the sun, it creates like a deceptive rather than actual effect. All right, and during the retrograde period, all sorts of confusion, uncertainty can take place, so it's wise that double check the fine print of any file that you submit, especially if it has your name attached to it. Okay, so you don't want to be in a hurry to push things through during this time. If possible, I would delay signing of official documents or launching things until after Mercury comes out of retrograde, for anything important. And you're also best to have, you can't wait, because as I always say, Mercury doesn't always wait. Life doesn't always wait for Mercury to come out of retrograde, right? So you want to just get a second pair of eyes to look over things, someone who has a critical eye, and organized. All right, regularly back up your electronic files. That's a must. If you haven't already done that, then make ways to do that. And be mindful of check any travel arrangements, double check them, any arrangements. Just be careful of the way you reach out and communicate with others, right? Pay extra attention that you're all on the same page. You all know what's going on. You all know who's accountable for what. Mistakes and errors can be made with electronic communications easily. We've all had that. Okay, so be mindful of a Mercury retrograde transit can just help you to, just knowing about it, be mindful of it, just helps you to prepare for interruptions that cross your path, and which can cost you money, as well, or put a dent in a relationship. All right, just work through it as best that you can. So, but a Mercury retrograde is not all bad news. There are certain ways that you can use this planetary transit to your advantage as well. It is the planet of communication and commerce. It does influence all forms of travel, communication, creativity, education, business, as well as technical correspondence and equipment. I always think that it's the 3 big ones: communication, creativity, and education. So keep those 3, in mind. And, you know, we live in this hyper-connected, material world, the information age. This really brought the phenomenon of Mercury retrograde into mainstream awareness, where our, you know, fast-paced, techno-department, you know, dependent culture makes us, you know, really look at the Mercury retrograde cycle. It stands out more dramatically now than in the past. So, and one of the messages that it brings with it is that, you know, it's time, and maybe it's time for each and every one of us to have some time out, you know, and just give that to ourselves. And so this month, you know, keep in mind, Mercury is also known as the messenger and the trickster of the gods. So it will appear to be moving back in the sky in the sign of Virgo, which is one of the signs that it rules, the other one being Gemini. And this is going to occur from August the 23rd to September the 15th. So the usual precautions are going to apply. Double check the fine print, postpone any major purposes or signing important documents, regularly check up your electronic files, double check the travel arrangements, all that we've, you know, gone through. I know I'm repeating myself here, but, you know, it's really important to do these things. And, you know, Mercury's primary domain is the realm of thought. It's the thinking planet, okay? So above all else, pay attention to your mental clarity or lack of it, you know? So it's normal to have some confusion during a Mercury retrograde. Excuse me. So the Mercury retrograde in Virgo is a mutable sign that is detailed oriented. You know, Mercury loves to delve deep into information and get the accuracy and clarity, which is great for Mercury placement. As mentioned, Mercury rules Virgo, the other sign being Gemini. So it works well with the energy nicely here. And it's a great time to get organized and just create processes in your life. Like, you know, the more that we plan and the more that we can get processes down of how we're going to achieve something, the point A, B, C, D. And I know that some signs are better at this than other. All the earth signs love it. You know, the water signs, maybe not so much of the air, but it really does help in life, and particularly helps with the Mercury, you know, retrograde. Now, one of the things to be mindful of is that particularly Mercury retrograde in Virgo does lend itself to overthinking, all right? So it's not sort of easy to let go of things, and it's not easy to always make sense of things. So therefore, you want to delve a little deeper, and it gives you this desire to wanting to delve deeper to make sense out of things. So be careful of that, because you get into that overthinking, which can sort of block the, you know, process of creativity, and, you know, it can cause your focus to be scattered and cause confusion. It can trigger frustration, basically. So you want to be a little bit careful of doing that. Instead, use this time to explore, research, just hone your plans. Cut yourself some slack if your concentration wanders, okay? And if your concentration does wander, maybe it's a time for you to have that little bit of time that you have for yourself, you know? So as I said, Mercury is the trickster as well. So, and this can be highlighted during this time. So you want to be mindful of just communicating clearly and, more importantly, honestly. No one can argue with your honest thought, okay? And it's time where you get to repair and restore as well. And that can be the relationship you're having with yourself or the relationship that you have with others. And this will greatly depend on where it falls in your sun sign chart, as well as where it forms in your birth chart. So, you know, if you want to know how this is going to affect you personally, go ahead and book one of the sessions. Go to private sessions on my website and you'll see them all there, okay? I would allow, you could, if we're just talking Mercury, you could do a 30-minute session. Hour session is always better, of course, more time, more information comes through. But we could do certainly 30-minute just to deal with Mercury. Something to think about. So, the cosmos does give you some time out to get organized during this period and just to get clear. And, then after you can just return to your normal routine, feeling more refreshed. So, if you can take advantage of it, it's especially valuable for creative projects right now. And these are all the sort of things that highlight in your birth chart. All right, so let's get on to the transit. So first of all, we got the shadow. So even though the main retrograde is from August the 23rd to September the 15th, there's what's called the shadow part of the retrograde, of which there are two, all right? The first part of the shadow phase of this cycle with Mercury in the sign of Virgo. Let's have a look here. So that's marked by the degree that Mercury backtracks to. Okay, so that actually began on August the 4th, and the second shadow period is when Mercury returns to where it was when it went retrograde. Okay, and that's going to extend to September the 29th. So the shadow retrograde is like a Mercury retrograde light, okay, with some of the disruptive retrograde energy slow down. I think fairies usually sort of know intuitively or what's going on when it goes into that shadow. And then I sort of think about it, and I pick up my, trusty little ephemeris book, and I go, oh yeah, that's what that is. It's in process. All right, so the next part of the transit is called the storm. This is where all the real mayhem goes. Okay, it's a most destructive transit stage. So this is the period just on either side of Mercury retrograde, the 2 or 3, 2, 3 or 3 or so, days. Some astrologers will even say up to 7. For me, it's really the 2 or 3 days either side of when Mercury is stationary retrograde, entering the transit, and again when Mercury is stationary direct, when it's coming out of the transit. Okay, the storm part of Mercury retrograde is the most problematic time. It's when the planet, appears to change direction, and you've got all that sort of energy like scuffle going on. So that's going to be from August the 20th to the 27th, which is the Mercury stationary retrograde, and again a stationary direct on September the 12th to the 18th. Okay, so these are days to especially strive for that zen-like attitude, towards any transport delays, drop calls, computer or phone glitches, or communication mix-up. Remember, there's always 2 ways to go about it. You can react or you can respond, but you can just let it go. All right, just let it go. Don't react, because once you react, you get out of that zen-like energy and vibration, and then that comes in from that reactive energy. You're attracting that from all sorts of areas. Okay, now the transit yourself, this is where the magic happens. Things start to settle down. Once Mercury settles into the retrograde transit, this can be a really positive time just to get things done, get things completed. You know, do some planning, do some research, do all the behind the scenes work. It's a productive time to get organized, plan, research, finalize anything that is important, like get on top of it, get in front of it, okay? Get that pile of work completed that continually falls to the bottom of your to-do list. I think we all have one of those files. I do. I'll look at that later. File, okay? Mercury retrograde is a great time to get that file out and clear it, all right? It's a good time to look at your goals, review them, reset them, close off anything that's been in your mind for a while. Sometimes when we, you know, we keep things on our to-do list or in our mind, when we re-look at it, particularly during a Mercury retrograde, we can go, okay, that's important, that's high priority, let's do that. That's not so much, let's put that aside. That, you know what, I don't even need that anymore. I don't even want to do that anymore. Let's just scrub that out, okay? So great time to get clarity, you know, like that. You can, you know, arrange your goals to head in the direction of your soul's purpose as well during this time. So people and situations can reappear from the past as well, okay? Depending on what area this sits in. I'm going to go through now what area it sits in for your solar chart, your sun sign, but really the real power is where it sits in your personal chart, okay? So as I said, go ahead and book a session for that. If you want, you know, more information, okay? So it's, you know, this is also the perfect time to just gain closure on any issues. First of all, gain clarity, then gain closure, and you can consolidate business rather than starting new projects, you know, during this time. A retrograde time is good to get things locked down, finish, complete what you have already started rather than launch something new. Ideally, okay, and just to reassess and fine-tune your personal and business dealings during this time. So all right, so let's go into each of the signs. There's 2 readings each of the signs. Now I'm going to put down the time codes down the bottom, the timestamp, so you can just go ahead and select your sign if you don't want to listen through each of them. The first reading for the sign will be how Mercury retrograde information for your sun sign. Like, how does your sun sign react to Mercury and retrograde Mercury? Then the next one is, how does Mercury retrograde in Virgo affect your sign for this one? All right, so you ready? All right, let's get started on this. If you need a little break, just sit, pause, and have a little break. All right, so Aries, so Mercury retrograde general, let's call it Mercury retrograde general. So when inspiration strikes, make sure you are ready to record your thoughts. Be careful of only looking at the large picture and overlooking the details. That's a big thing for Aries. So Aries, you're known to make rash decisions, you know, quick decisions, and in a Mercury retrograde time, it can lead to making irreversible errors. So you want to like take a step back, think it through. It's best to keep your strong opinions right now to yourself. So over this time, it's a general rule, you want to do more listening than talking. All right, and how is Mercury in Virgo going to affect you? So overworking and taking on too much, okay, can end up you just having to take a forced rest just to recuperate. So be careful of that. Play it safe. Make sure that you have a good dose of life balance. Otherwise, long hours at the office as well as partying to dawn can take its toll. Who does that anymore? Does anyone? I'm sure I used to do it when I was younger. Okay. Anyway, you get the picture. So don't get yourself all wound up worrying about things that probably are out of your control and may not even happen. Okay, let that go. All right, so Taurus. So Mercury retrograde general for your sun sign. As a Taurus, you're known to have a good level of common sense. Yay, I'm a Capricorn, you're my perfect match. And you know, with the energy of Mercury retrograde, and guess what, this can totally disappear, just go out the window, and confusion sort of sets in. So prepare to double check your communications. It's possible just to miss important data over this time. Also, you can be a little stubborn at times, so, and this can take on a new dimension. So focus on staying flexible, okay, and listening to what other people have to say. Okay, so Mercury in Virgo, how is that going to affect Taurus? You want to be careful of taking people for granted during this time. Just when you think you have life all worked out and you have a strategy just to get anyone to do just about anything, then your plans can change in a moment's notice, okay? So beware of that. Stay flexible, as I said. So don't gamble with life. This is a time to be sensible and serious, as well as upfront with the people that you are nearest and dearest to. Gemini, so Mercury retrograde general for your sun sign. You can solve complex problems, Gemini, where others are still trying to sort of figure out the first base. And as Mercury is your ruling planet, this puts you in a better position than most other signs. However, you can become distracted and go off on tangents because you're interested in so many different things. I have a Gemini South Node, and I tend to take on too much. I have to remind myself, you know what? You can do it all, just not straight, just not all at once, okay? So there's a need just to stay focused, set your priorities and stay focused, all right? And beware of, you know, beware of being a know-it-all. I mean, you are a know-it-all, okay? But in the nicest possible way, I mean that. But you want to be prepared to and open just to learn from others. And how does Mercury in Virgo affect Gemini? So it's anything to do with your family, home, children. How does Mercury in Virgo, this Mercury retrograde? So it's anything to do with your home, your family, your children, or your domestic area of life. That can sort of come a little unhinged during this time. So beware of that. You don't want to assume anything. If you're unsure of someone's movements, then take the time to get the facts, ask questions, all right? And be mindful just to make sure that you have your keys when you go out, all right? Double check that. I have a lockbox on my door because I'm leaving my keys and locking myself out too many times that I had to get a lockbox. So maybe that's a good thing for you to make sure that you lock your place, you take your keys. It's a good time, you know, to have a spare set of keys, perhaps with a neighbor or friend. Okay, so Cancer. So Mercury retrograde generally for your sign, Cancer, over this period, you know, Cancers are already compassionate nature, and that can be intensified. So you can understand other people's positions and help them gain a level of understanding. That's like a natural, innate sort of gift for you. But be careful of expecting too much from people and becoming resentful when they don't meet your expectations, because let's face it, you know, that happens. And how does Mercury in Virgo for this retrograde affect your sign? Keep your day planner flexible, okay? Plans can change in an instant now, and when there's chaos and confusion around you, there's no point digging in your heels and insisting that is business as usual, because guess what, it's not. You know, you may as well just go with the energy and go into fix-it management mode to find solutions, even if it's just a band-aid fix for now, all right? And if you're confronted with a situation where someone needs to take control, then step up, as you know, really you're the person to do it, okay? Yeah, this is not so bad. This is not so bad for you, and that you just want to be open to what comes next. Now, Leo, so Leo, Mercury retrograde energy in your sun sign. So you're a natural conversationalist and can be entertaining, humorous, and you have the ability to be an inspiring public speaker. In fact, the sign that most presidents are is Leo and also Aquarius. So, you know, both fixed signs. I find that interesting. US presidents I'm talking about. So, you know, we want to be careful over this period not to be too dogmatic, not insisting that others must agree with your opinions, okay? Be open. After all, you're known to be just a tad bit bossy, right? Okay, and this side of you can really come out, and if you're not careful, then it can turn a little bit ugly. So, you know, just stay open to what's going on. All right, now how does Mercury, this retrograde with Mercury in Virgo, affect your sign? It's anything to do with finances, possession, or property, as affected during this period. All right, so you can perhaps expect some delays and mix-ups, and small or grand, you know. So just try to go with the flow with that. You know, you can do what you can do to avoid disruption to your life by having your business matters under control, okay? And then there are the things that other people do that are out of your control. So, and that's where the mayhem can set loose. But hey, you have no control over that. So don't start worrying about it, okay? All right, so Virgo. So Virgo, Mercury retrograde in your sun sign, and it is in your sun sign. So we've got two readings here. So what Mercury retrograde looks like for you and what Mercury retrograde in your sign looks like for you. Okay, so first of all, as an analytical and organized person, you do have a very good eye for detail. All right, you take pride in your work, and you can discuss just about any topic with just about anyone. All right, so Mercury is your ruling planet, so in many ways you're more aligned with the energy than other people, but I can still feel like your world is being tipped upside down during this period. So it's important not to assume anything. Don't make any assumptions. Okay, and so with this particular retrograde, with Mercury in your sign retrograde for the whole of the retrograde period, don't be surprised if you feel just a little bit out of sorts and at times sort of uncomfortable in your own skin. I like that feeling for you because it helps you step out of your comfort zone, you know, and it's important for Virgo because it's part of how you advance, part of how all we advance. And because you're so organized and controlled, it can be a little bit more difficult for Virgo to do this. So the retrograde sort of pushes you out, okay? So, you know, you'll need to do everything you can just to keep, you know, feel the unbalance and then think, okay, is this good for me? Am I learning something? And, you know, and do I really need to work around the clock like a mad person? No, give yourself a break, okay? Do use your skill of getting processes in place. You're already, you know, process oriented, or process, I think you say it in America. And, you know, so continue that and stay organized, and that's going to help you feel more comfortable. All right, and finally, do something nice for yourself. Give yourself a break. Do something nice every single day. Okay. Okay, so Libra. So Mercury retrograde generally for your sign, Libra. You have a heart of gold, okay? And you are there for your friends no matter what. You have a good listening ear, and you love just to fix things for other people. Love that about Libra, okay? However, when Mercury is retrograde, there's a need just to be careful that you don't overstep your mark, okay? I mean, if it's unsolicited advice, then it could be seen as interfering and not being helpful, okay? Okay, so Mercury and this Mercury retrograde with Mercury in Virgo, let's see what effect that's going to have on your sign. So beware of being in too much of a hurry. You want to just always check the facts and figures. You're good at that, so there shouldn't be any issue there, particularly if it's anything that's written in an article or a letter, email, you know, before you send it or before you send an attachment, open it up, look at it. Is it the right attachment going to the right person? Okay, particularly if it pertains to an official type of document. And even, you know, even if you must check the fine print 3 times, it's going to be worth the effort. Okay, if it's important, get someone else to look at it. And also be careful of passing on important jobs and errands to others. I mean, you can't do everything yourself, but if it's something that needs a level of urgency and professionalism, then sometimes you're just better doing it yourself. Okay, I mean, and you know, yeah, and if you really don't have the time to triple check everything, then you can't assume that someone else has picked up the slack. So you want to trust your instincts. Tune in. Does it feel right? Have you got that niggly feeling? Go back and have another look. Okay, so Scorpio. So Mercury retrograde generally for your sign, Scorpio. You are a great investigator. However, you know, when you really want to get to the bottom of something, you can end up being your own worst enemy, not knowing when to give up and not knowing when to let go. So, you know, be conscious of that. So beware of becoming, you know, a little bit sort of, you know, I want to say nasty, but I'm sure there's a better word for that. You know, but a little bit sort of nasty when you have differences with those you love. Sort of quick, you know, because you're in a hurry. You know what you're doing. Sometimes Scorpio can just like be a little bit like Aries and like, you know, just send off like a little bit of a sarcastic type. So try to avoid that. Okay, be mindful, not everyone sees life through your eyes. All right, and wouldn't it be boring if they did? Right. Okay, so and this Mercury retrograde in Virgo for your sign, don't even think about keeping secrets from your niece, dearest, or close friends, okay? Even if it's something that he or she doesn't need to know. I mean, you know, if you leave out pertinent details, it can be seen as you trying to hide something. All right, so keep in mind that having a say and putting across your viewpoints strongly during this period can also somewhat alienate people. So take a leaf out of Libra's book and be more diplomatic. So be open-minded, you know, just be open-minded enough to listen to other people's opinions, even if you don't agree with them. You don't have to agree with it, but, you know, just to be open to engaging. All right, so Sagittarius. So Mercury retrograde generally in your sign, Sagittarius, is your freedom-loving sign. You need to have the flexibility to move. You know, when you have the desire to do, you like to keep things a little bit flexible. So, and when you are held back or when you feel boxed in, then over a Mercury retrograde period, you can become a little bit withdrawn with your feelings of, you know, just feeling trapped. So instead, looks to strategically work your way out of any tricky situation that sort of knocks on your door. Okay, so and how does this Mercury retrograde in Virgo affect your sign? So anything to do with business is going to be under the microscope now. And if you're in meetings or finalizing discussions, just make sure that you double check the arrangements. So you want to make sure everybody's on the same page, everybody knows what they're doing, what they're accountable for. It's important over this period just to take extra care with like backing up your work electronically, make sure you've got everything in order, be organized. You don't want anything to fall through the cracks, okay? All right, so Capricorn. So Mercury retrograde generally in your sign, Capricorn. So you're we're business-minded people. And, you know, generally we're extremely efficient and talented at what we do. We don't do things half-assed, all right? So, you know, generally organized and productive. So when Mercury goes retrograde, you can find yourself going off on tangents a little bit and just losing control of your day plan and getting a little overwhelmed. All right. So this is a time where you need to be aware of other people wanting to take control. We don't like that so much, do we? So, you know, but once, you know, we're off our game, then someone else can come in and, you know, take over. All right. So, I mean, when you're not balanced within yourself, then also you can become a little bit sort of grumpy and serious. That's the Saturn, you know, Saturnian blues, Saturn there. All right, so how does this Mercury retrograde in Virgo affect your sign? I mean, if you're traveling, then be sure to check and double check the arrangements. Make sure that you have everything you need just packed in your suitcase, label your luggage, and of course, allow for delays or mishap, you know, whether it's trains, planes, automobiles, or subways, anything to do with travel can be altered now. Okay, so you want to look for the opportunities just to don't assume anything, double check everything, and look for opportunities to learn something new during this time. There are valuable lessons that can lead to your personal growth, so not just new on a business, but, you know, leading to self-development and inner empowerment over this time. Okay. All right, so Aquarius, so Mercury retrograde generally for your sign Aquarius is you're a highly intellectual sign and can often can't understand why other people are not able to keep up with your thinking speed or not able to see things the way that you can see. That can be a frustration now. So you want to be careful of being intolerant of anyone who isn't just simply not on the same page as you. Okay, so when you get irritable, you can cut someone down with a look or a few acid words, all right? And that can cause some damage, which may not be easily repaired. So, you know, here's the rule: don't react, don't overreact, just respond. Okay, or just let it go. All right, so how does this Mercury retrograde in Virgo affect your sign? So you want to be careful that you don't take someone's throwaway comments personally. Probably has nothing to do with you in reality. You just happen to be in the firing line, okay? So don't latch onto it. Money matters can be a little confusing now, and something that you've been promised can also be delayed, but you know, it's not likely to be cancelled like just the normal Mercury delays. So you want to just try to go with the flow, take life in your stride a bit more and just see what unfolds, see what happens. And you know, what's delayed over this period can actually right itself, you know, pretty well without much effort from you or from anyone else. I often find with Mercury retrograde, just sort of let things sort of go. They just sort of come and fix themselves, you know. All right, so Pisces, so Mercury retrograde for your sun sign Pisces, as your, you know, imagination is totally awesome. You like to be positive and you gravitate to like-minded people who have an optimistic, positive outlook on life. These are the people you want to, like, you know, invite into your inner circle and keep everybody else outside, okay? At the best of times, you do not take criticism as well. So over this period, then you're particularly vulnerable to other people's opinions of yourself or what you do. And then this can like lead to just cutting ties with some people who have potential to deeply hurt you on an inner emotional level. So just be mindful. Do you want to cut ties, or do you want to just recognize that these are people that you want to put some distance between you and them? Okay. All right, so how does Mercury retrograde, this Mercury retrograde in Virgo, affect your sign? Okay, so this could be a bit of a roller coaster love ride for you when it comes to communication between you and another, okay? So it can like get totally out of hand at this period. You know, those occasions where, you know, you say one thing and then you try to say something else to fix it, and then you just sort of delve yourself in deeper, and the more you say, the worse it gets. Honestly, sometimes it's just best not to say anything, you know, until the energy settles and until you have a chance to think it through and see how the land lies. Okay, so this is like one of those times where, you know, can be when no matter what you say, it just gets worse. So avoid that. Sometimes, as I say, it's just best to say nothing or very little. And remember, the power is in the silence, all right? Let's just say that this is not the best time to tackle a long-standing, sensitive relationship issue. Take note of it, do some research, particularly of how you feel. Is it something you want to go on with? Is it something that you want to make some changes with? And you know, I'm not usually, textbook is best like, let's leave it until after Mercury retrograde, but sometimes that Mercury retrograde energy sort of like highlights and forces you into doing something which you may not do, which can work out best for you. So go within, only you can work that out. Okay, so thanks for watching, everyone. Love and luck to you, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye for now. Enjoy the Mercury retrograde.